So hi everyone, welcome to Architecture in the Den, and today I'm delighted to welcome Grant Erskine. So I've known Grant for a good 10 years and it'd be really good to have a proper chat with you on entrepreneurship. So in the first instance, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Grant. I'm the founder, principal, chartered architect of Grant Erskine Architects. I put a lot of thought into the name of the company. We're based here in Manchester. Our projects are sort of, well, nationwide really, but we always say the job's got to be big enough to attract us. Probably we're better known for working with investors. It seems to be sort of a bit of a niche that we've carved out, makes up about 80% of our work. But yeah, I've been in sort of the architecture game for coming up on 22 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Considering I'm only 40, I'm not 50. A lot of people look at me and go, God, he must be really old. I'm not that old, but yeah, I started young.
I won't mention how old I am. Needless to say, over the week, funny story. Over the week, not related to architecture at all. Over the weekend, I was in the newspaper. I was in the Saturday Telegraph with my son. My mother-in-law sort of called me up and said that there'd been a misprint on my age.
A good one or a bad one?
Me and my husband had been kind of leading her on a little bit, saying that I was 10 years younger than I am. And she was like, Lisa, it says here you're 49. Is it true? I'm like, it's really funny. We avoided her guessing over Christmas because she thought it was my big birth in my 40th coming up. I was like, no, actually, it's my big birthday's next year. Anyway, what's an age? It's just a number. Exactly. So yeah, but we both set up around the same time. I set up Raynes Architecture and you set up Grant Erskine Architects.
Yeah,
because we both got caught in the redundancies of the financial crash.
Yeah. I've been very lucky. I dodged 3 waves of redundancy. Mm-hmm. With BDP, they were quite resilient in the first year or two, so they didn't see it, and then it was a carnage, unfortunately.
Remember when it was? What sort of date?
It was October 2010.
Yeah, that is pretty much same as me.
Yeah.
So for me, I took a year maternity and thought it'll settle down by the time, I thought have a child, be off for a year, came back, no, didn't dodge it. It was still going on. So yeah. They lost me, and yeah, around exactly the same time, October 2010, I think it was. I think I won my first job in November.
Was about
yeah. And then we met on the MSA circuit, the Manchester Society of Architects.
Yeah, so that's I went from working in an office with 250 odd people in Manchester, in I think 220, 230, whatever it was, somewhere around that, to literally sitting in the back bedroom of my house on my own for weeks on end. So MSA was a bit of a godsend for me in the early days, to just talk to people and to get out and meet people, because it can be quite hard on your own,
And it was really the start of networking. I mean, I was at the solo practitioners group, and then kind of had a seat on the MSA from that, the Manchester Society of Architects, so I could like dip in and out and try and avoid as much of the politics as possible.
Yeah, I think that's just with everything. Put a group of people together in anywhere, whether it's church or whether it's a society or whether it's a sports club, and there's always politics and bickering. That's just, I think, human nature to an extent.
So coming back to the subject of the podcast, we're both architects, but I would say that we're both entrepreneurs. I'd like to see myself as an entrepreneur, and definitely see you as an entrepreneur, Grant. So in a nutshell, what is an entrepreneur?
That's a hard one. It's an interesting one. I suppose in its purest form, an entrepreneur is responsible for making their own living, bringing in their own money. I think it's funny because I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk. I listen to a lot of Gary V. And
Sorry, who?
Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. He's like a business speaker from New York. Speaks
Okay.
accent, really hard hitting, and he pulls no punches. And he hates the word entrepreneur. He says he never wanted to be one, even though he's a famous entrepreneur. Because in his mind, an entrepreneur was a guy selling stuff out of a suitcase on the side of a road, sort of thing. And he wanted to be a businessman, not an entrepreneur. And it's an interesting idea because God, every man and his dog seems to be an entrepreneur these days, and it has, in a way, become a bit of a sullied name. I suppose it's somebody who is responsible for their own income, I suppose, is in its purest form. They don't know where the next paycheck's coming from. I would say is probably the easiest definition. What would you think? What would you say it is?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's kind of maybe something a little bit beyond that. Maybe I think it might be about kind of establishing your business, but maybe it's about growth and kind of including other people in that plan.
Yeah.
I think it's about creating a business that maybe doesn't just support you.
Yeah. It's interesting what you say, because that's you meet a lot of people who are self-employed, for themselves being an entrepreneur, but ultimately they're not really the entrepreneur. I don't know. They're self-employed, and I suppose it is somebody, as you say, who creates something that is more than them doing a job on a freelance basis. I suppose it's somebody who creates a business, as you say. But we could talk about it all day.
I mean, it's sort of in terms of what you've done, and I think maybe it's about taking chances. What you've done, sort of like, first of all, with your architectural business, but then also with your biz expos and your property investor stuff. I'd see those as kind of like entrepreneurial kind of jumps.
Yeah.
So do you want to just give a little background to those little stories?
Yeah, so I suppose I've owned a handful of different businesses. It's not too hard to find out, and I currently do have a couple of different businesses. At my heart, I'm an architect. I run an architect's practice. Probably the most successful one. I owned an events company for about 4 or 5 years. I never set out to own an events company. I actually ran a PR stunt for the architects firm, and the idea being that I was quite aware that business owners were a good client for me for one of two reasons. Either they had made their money and they wanted to build a nice house for themselves, or more importantly, most business owners do the same thing, which I'm sure you've done, I know I've done, where you spend a long time building your business, thinking about your exit. You're not really thinking about your pension. You're not really thinking about putting money away. And then as your business starts to grow, you've got a little bit of cash and you start thinking about, okay, well, how do I spend this cash to be comfortable in the, and some people invest in stocks and shares, some people invest in gold, most people invest in property because it's a good solid asset. So it just made a lot of sense to me to get a room full of business owners and try and sell them services. So I ran a little event, inadvertently ran one of the biggest events of its type at the time. I think we brought about 500 odd business owners to it. And I won a few jobs. That was the main goal. I won a few jobs out of it. And over the next couple of months, people started to ring me and say, we heard about, the people who weren't even there were ringing, we heard about your event, it's fantastic, yada, yada, we want to be involved. And they started offering me money. And I kept saying, I'm never doing it again. It was a one-off PR. It was a lot of work. Like, a lot of people think it was easy. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And then out of frustration, I went, right, fine, I'll do one more. I'll hire the Hilton Hotel, and we'll have a one more final dance, so to speak. And I brought 1,200 business owners to it. People had come from all across the north and beyond. And then somebody said to me at that event, you'll have to do another one. And I went, right, okay, well, maybe we'll do this once a year. It wasn't, I'd learned a lot in the first one. The second one wasn't too hard. Then people started saying, you need to bring this to our city because nobody does it like you're doing it. Because it was targeted at the SME. It wasn't your big sort of GMEX, £10,000 a stand type stuff. It was very achievable for everybody to attend. And at its peak, I had I had an event in 8 cities across the UK. Well, you don't know what you don't know. I had to pay a bloody tax man, but I carved it off, took it out of the architect's firm, built it as its own business, had its own sort of management structure, and it always niggled me that I had to pay tax, even though no money changed hands, because I was the director shareholder of both companies. But because I took the asset out, and it's always learning. That's what this game is always learning stuff. And yeah, I sold it about 3 years ago, something like that. And yeah, I've always had that sort of, I wouldn't say always, but since setting up my architect's firm, I suppose in a way I've always had a bit of a ability to take a confidence to take chances. So like I owned for about 18 months an LGBT speed dating company, which came from a conversation with a friend. A mate of mine, he couldn't find a partner, couldn't find a fella. And I said, well, surely it must be easy. Like, he said he was sick of the club scene. He was sick of Grindr. He was sick of the hookup scene. He couldn't, and he actually wanted to go on a date. He was really struggling to find. Surely it couldn't be that hard to create that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a speed dating company in Liverpool, Manchester, and Leeds for about a year as well.
Wow, I did not know that. That's definitely
a good little business, actually. It just didn't make enough to keep me interested.
Yeah.
And it didn't scale. It needed too much of my time. So just fizzled.
Okay, cool. And you're now looking at you've got property.
Yeah, so I'm in that game. I also have a training company, which we've made dormant for since COVID.
Right. Okay.
Didn't really work in the COVID. We just tried to take it. We didn't want to take it into digital. So that's been made dormant. But yeah, I've got I like problem solving, I suppose. Business is problem solving.
Yeah. Oh, maybe we should have a chat offline. Yeah. So yeah, I suppose I've gone down the franchise route as well. So, but it is about taking risk and chance, and well, for me, persistence and a lot of hard work.
Yeah, always. It's never anybody who says it's easy is kidding themselves. It's not.
No. I know. So yeah, for me with Pride Road, it's kind of like I've got, I'm running it. I'm kind of, well, the driving force. There's only one person who can drive these things forward, and it's you really. So
that's what I always say though. When I worked on my own, I worked all the hours that were set. When I started hiring staff, I still worked all the hours set, and I'm blessed to have good colleagues with me.
Yeah.
But there is a difference between the motivation of an employee and an employer. There's a whole fear difference aspect. There's a whole emotion aspect to it. It's just a different game. And the stress, the risk, the sleeplessness, the fear, I suppose that's the downside to the.
But it's your driver as well. It gets you up in the morning and gets you on it. I know I've kind of been doing a bit of an 12-hour day today, but I've been on Clubhouse this morning. I've got a room. So a little bit of a plug. If you're on Clubhouse, come and find us. I've got a club called Constructive Together. It's about construction networking across the UK. So that's every morning, 8 a.m. Every Monday, not every morning, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. consistently. And it's a challenge running it around children and school runs, but you've just got to go for it and be persistent. So coming back to the topic, what's the biggest mistake you made when you started your practice?
I suppose in a way it was assuming that work would find me. I think that was the biggest learning curve, I suppose, because I had good pedigree. I 5 years at BDP, I had 5 years at a major house builder. Prior to that, I'd been at Manchester. I ticked a lot of boxes as an employee, but I sort of remember sitting and going, why are people not banging down the door? Why are they not flocking up the streets? You know, I've got all this experience and all this knowledge and everything else. And in a way, I suppose it was underestimating the importance of understanding how you attract work. You know, that's your lifeline. It doesn't really matter how good an architect you are or in any other business. It doesn't matter how good you are at doing it. You need to get good at building business, at attracting work, or finding a referral stream or a lead generation stream which is work to you, because you can be the best in the room, but if you've got nothing to do, you're not doing anything.
So what was your first kind of referral kind of stream?
My first referral, so in the early days, this is like sort of 2010, there was nothing around. There was literally nobody was really doing anything. So I scratched around offering part services, I suppose, stuff that other architects didn't want to do, and just everything and anything, problem solving in a lot of cases. So like one of my first decent paying jobs was actually preparing, it was an apartment scheme here in the Northern Quarter, preparing the sales plans, the title plans. So it had nothing to do with the design, construction, anything else, but I just had an introduction to the client through the solicitor, and they were really struggling getting the title plans drawn. And the irony was that I had started at the age of 18 in an architect's firm, and that was my first job, was preparing plans or transfer plans. And you know, and I suppose it was probably about 6 months in where I started to really hit the networking hard. I know you did BNI, I did BNI. I did everything. I went to the open envelope. So B for B, BNI, for networking, simply networking, all of the independents. You know, I was constantly networking all the time. And even then, I wasn't a natural networker. I had to go and learn that skill, which is one of the big things, one of the big benefits that I found with BNI is that their training was very, very good.
Training is very good at BNI.
Yeah, so even if you weren't getting the referrals from BNI, the training aspect of it, teaching you how to talk to people, how to engage with people, give you the confidence to go into a room full of people and just talk, you know, because it's really a hard thing to do. And for me, it was all learned skills. It wasn't something that came naturally to me. So yeah, I think probably that's well, I built my business in the early days off the back of BNI. You know, it's
and so we're quite good at referring work to each other. I think a mistake other people tend to make when they go into networking groups is that they don't talk to other architects in the groups. Whereas if you talk to another architect and where you've got that synergy, because where you overlap, I've got stuff that I do that you don't do, and vice versa. We've passed a couple of clients over to each other today, actually, and it works brilliantly.
I think architects are quite precious about that. You know, they don't want to. It's a bit of a nonsense in a way, but I suppose it's just how a lot of us are wired, that they struggle to pass it around and recommend people and stuff. And in the early days, I was, I suppose, quite similar, and it wasn't until, I don't know, maybe I became a bit more comfortable within myself, or I became a bit more confident in my you know, the big thing, I'm sure you've heard the phrase imposter syndrome. I think a lot of us in the early days do suffer from it. But in my mind, I'm always trying to pull architects up. I'm always trying to promote architects, even if it's not me. I always say to people, even if you're not using me, use an architect. You know, it will make your life so much easier. So yeah, I'm a massive advocate in trying to help other architects and pull other architects up and refer.
You had a really good kind of advertising campaign where it was like, what was it, Maestro and not Maestro? I love those. They were brilliant.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed them. There was, go on, John, to just explain that campaign.
I think that's still around. So that was turned out as a bit of it's almost a tongue-in-cheek joke. I can't even remember where it came from, but we were quiet in the office, and that's way back. I think that was in the days when it was just me and a part one, and we started just creating a whole load of, like, in fact, no, I've cleared them out. business cards. We used to leave little business cards, and there'd be maestro, not maestro, and we'd do things like like a picture of a really grand Christmas tree, like a photo of a real grand Christmas tree, and then another photo of like a little air freshener Christmas tree just hung on a wall with a present, and we'd say, maestro, not maestro, use an architect, and we just, really quite just fun, punchy, and we
I
did.
thought it was brilliant. I really did.
Might still be a website on a, I think we hosted it on a blog site somewhere. It still might be around. It was just always.
I think you need to find it, and then we'll put it onto the bio on these podcasts.
It was just, again, it was just another. It was me trying another marketing approach. I think was it about a year in, I joined the entrepreneur circle. That's sort of where I started to learn a lot about marketing strategy and growth strategy and sort of networking strategy, I suppose. And I think I used to just test stuff all the time and try stuff all the time, how it landed.
Yeah, I think I did the entrepreneur circle as well. We really did follow each other. I did it for 2 months. I got the free book and a couple of sessions and then left. But at the end of it, I thought, for me, it was like, oh, franchising, that's a great idea. Let's do it.
It was very, it's funny, I don't really recommend it now. I don't know it now, but I don't really recommend it now because it changed its way. Back then, they pretty much said that we're going to just teach you how to attract clients. It made a massive difference to how I approached my business and how I understood, I suppose, even just how to speak to people and how to engage with people and how to attract people and get out of the noise that everybody else is making.
Do you think the architecture in this training education equipped us for all of this?
No. But I remember having this discussion. It was in an MSA event. How many architects go on to own their own business or run their own business or be the edge of the point? And it's probably not that high. So when you think about the law of averages, the universities just teach you enough to achieve what they want to achieve. And then also when you think about it, a university, the difference between the academic and the profession is huge. It's miles apart. And I'm not running the academic down because I'm a big fan of it. It certainly changed how I think about stuff and made me a problem solver. But at the end of the day, it's certainly not a professional course, in my opinion. It's not setting you up to go into a profession. And at the end of the day, even when you think about it, because my wife studied law, is a solicitor, and how they are trained and how they understand their business from quite early in their academic career, hugely different to how we're trained and how we understand. We don't understand our business. It's not until you get to the part 3 that you really start to talk about the business, the business profession.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's when you go in, I think I remember my aha moment, I think, was going in to do my second year experience, and then you're starting to listen out because you know that it's got to count and you're going to be tested on it. How does this work? How does this work? In fact, in my part 3 experience was the first time I kind of understood the difference between cost and value.
Yeah.
We had Nick Johnson, who was at Ian Simpson's Simpson Huff, and Nick Johnson had some space in the office below with Martin Stockley. And whenever, as soon as we'd done a scheme or we'd run it past Nick to look at the value of it. So when we were master planning something, we'd just run down and go, Nick, would this work? Does this stack up? And he'd do some numbers and yes, no, you need more of this. And it was Nick that I think explained the difference between cost and value. I was like, how ridiculous is that? 6 years of architecture studying.
It was something that it was a BDP. I remember sitting in a team, and the associate director, a guy called Ian Purser, he pretty much said, we're stopping. Put down pens, we're stopping. There's no more money left in this. And I was amazed. I was gobsmacked at this idea, because at university, you work till it's done, and even when it's done, you keep working. Every student is always, the all-nighter, the last minute, the polishing, and that's how we're trained. It's the most incorporate, stupid idea, and it's something that I now try to. Well, I have since I set up my business. I say, look, this is going to take X amount of hours. And with my colleagues, I say, look, I wanted to take that amount of hours. If it takes longer, let me know, because I know I'm not pricing the job right, or I'm not considering. But having that sort of that, I don't want you working long hours. I don't want you polishing, refining at this. We need to understand that it's a business. It's a profession. It's not a vocation. And it's not. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying it's still a passion. But we need to be professional about it. And I think there's a lot of times we get we go back to the old ways of a university, where we're enjoying what we're doing, but we're realizing that we're spending 3 days putting shadows on a drawing without getting design freeze or something, and then the client comes back and changes something, and then we're changing it again, and it's sort of, it's little steps in the process that makes it difference between being something for fun, or something for a hobby, or something for academia, and being a business, and something that you make a living out of, and you have a career in.
So we've had a question in. So our listener has just set up their practice. They're about a year into it, and they're struggling to get leads. So what would be your advice on where to target, or best places to advertise or market?
So the short answer to that is where are your clients? That's the short answer. And it's very, very easy to say that from experience. But now that I've sort of I've been there, I would sit and and this is something, again, the entrepreneurs told me, sit and write a list of your 6 best clients, and you start to look at, you actually write a profile of them, what they do, where they are, what is their life like, what paper do they read, what do they look like, what golf club they're playing, or whatever it is, whatever you're chasing. And this sounds sort of difficult, but once you start to refine who you want to give your message to, you can then start to refine your message for that person. And it's sort of thing, if you cast a big net in a big lake, chances are you're not going to get a huge amount. But if you cast a big net in a small lake, you suddenly got a lot more chance of getting a few fish out of it, and sort of, but almost being laser focused. I trialed this way early on. I sat and I wrote a really good email, and I sent it to 20 people, personalized, that I wanted to speak to. Of those 20 people, only 3 of them came back to me, and it wasn't a whole sales pitch. I wasn't even selling. I think the subject line was something like coffee ? And then I opened with, hi John. I didn't know him personally, but I still pretended like I did. John, hi Sarah, hi Mark, hi whatever. I'd like to come and buy you a coffee and have a chat for half an hour. I want to learn more about what you do. When can you fit me in? Something like that. Something like that. And of the 20, I think 15 ignored me, and 2 or 3 said, may I come back to me in 6 months, and 2 or 3 give me a shout. And I went and I had a coffee with them, and they were being very generous. And I went in and half an hour with them. But of that, I got 1 job. But that job was a big job. It was a decent job. It was a repeat job as well. I'll give you the prime other example is I paid for Yale.com, premium listing on Yale.com. And I'm a big fan of measuring stuff. Every single job that I've ever had, I know exactly where it came from. I know exactly how I got it. I know if it's a repeat. I know if it's new. I know how much it was worth. I can cross-reference all of this information to know how much money we make from doing apartments, how much we do from new builds. You ask me any one thing, and I can tell you what percentage that is of our turnover. But Yale.com had paid for it because I was shown on by you'll get premium listing, you'll be well known, yada yada yada. In over a year, after paying I think something like £900, we didn't get 1 single job out of it. And understanding that, and so looking back at where your clients have come from and how you got and measuring it, that really will help inform that if there's stuff you're doing that's not bringing you work, you either have to reconsider how you're doing it or turn the volume down on it a bit. And if the stuff you're doing is bringing you work, you turn the volume up on that and you push harder at it.
That's brilliant. Sue Butcher, we had Sue Butcher on the podcast. We were talking about how to find clients. So if you just look back at our Architecture in the Den podcast with Sue Butcher, that's really useful. And it'd be good to have a chat with you, because so with Pride Road, we're incredibly niche. So we just do residential extensions. So we know exactly who our clients are, and we know how to market to them. So, we have sort of clients coming to us because our website reflects who the clients are. So the clients are just homeowners, lay clients. So our website is just very smiley, kind of lots of pictures of lifestyle-y pictures of clients smiling, and it works really well. So
it's an extreme opposite strategy that I use very successfully is I like to build communities of shelter. I think I told you I have a Facebook group for property investors. It has 22,000 people in it, because the content's good and because I work hard at maintaining it. Ask me how many architects are in that group.
How many architects are in that group? And I think on that note, we need to end. So thank you so much, Grant, for coming on. It's been lovely talking to you again. And yes, please, if you're interested in this subject, please do listen to and subscribe to Architecture in the Den on YouTube, or it's available on Spotify, Alexa, Google. Like, share, whatever. We've had Ryan Willard on talking about the business of architecture, Sue Butcher, and many others. And we do focus on the business of architecture, because I think it's a bit of a dark art. Anyway, thanks again, Grant, and take care.